I'm building a research lab here in my garage, and so far I've turned it from a total mess to this kind of basic lab setup that you can see behind me. But before I get to how I did this, the real question is why? Well, first, I want to do cool science and research to try and make the world a better place. And I need a space to do that. But really, I'm a little bit selfish, and I want to do this on my own time and on my own terms, rather than being owned by some giant corporation or relying on government funding. In this political climate, get real. So, I want to find out if it's even possible to do this kind of independent research trying to solve real problems and fund it by doing it publicly and openly here on the internet. I have about a 2-year timeline to make this work, so I'm going to be going all in on trying to build a community of people who are interested in this kind of science, want to maybe support me, or even better, do this kind of research alongside me. If it doesn't work out, then it's back to the job market with me, but at least I'll have a really interesting YouTube resume to show for it. I'm taking this leap for a couple of reasons. First, in my opinion, the current system for science in America is kind of broken, just like this beaker that was broken when I ordered it in the mail. Funding is being cut, profits are being put over everything else, and it feels like the priorities are being set by and benefiting a select few people instead of the greater whole of everybody else. Second, I don't think that this is what the majority of people actually want. I believe that people want to build solutions to our problems, and they see the value in investing in science and research in order to build that better future. And I think that there are enough people out there who just care about things getting better and want to see solutions being discovered to build a community of people, like I was saying, that could either support this research or engage with it themselves. If that sounds interesting to you, then make sure to like this video, follow along, subscribe, so that you can be a part of this community as we build it together. I already have a couple of really interesting research projects that I'm really excited to do that I'm going to go over at the end of this video. So stick around if you want to learn about those. But today, I'm talking about all the things that I've done to transform my garage into my research lab. That's all the painful parts, the things that I messed up, the sketchy parts that I'm going to get into later, and most importantly, what it takes to make it safe. The first thing I had to do was figure out what kind of space I had to work with and what kind of lab I wanted to build. So I cleaned out the garage and I took some measurements to know what kind of dimensions I was working with and planned out the materials that I would need. You see, every discipline of science needs a different kind of lab. Physics labs need lasers and really precise equipment. Chemistry needs fume hoods and analytical equipment, and so on and so forth. For me, I got my degree in biomedical sciences, my master's in chemistry focusing on sensors and biotechnology, and I worked in cell biology research and development for one of the largest science companies in the world. So ideally, the lab I want to build will be suitable for biology research, biochemistry research, or kind of these biomaterials that I'm really interested in. This is partly because I can't afford a chemistry lab right now. The equipment is way too expensive. And starting with this kind of basic biology lab is a lot easier and more accessible right now because the danger levels and the hazard levels are pretty low. I have to start small, so I'm looking to be culturing like bacteria or fungi or yeast, maybe even some plants in this kind of first space that I'm setting up. Because these things I'm working with are pretty much harmless, I'm actually a bigger threat to infecting them than they are to infecting me or the environment around me. But I still had to follow basic biosafety level 1 protocols, which for me means having surfaces that are easy to clean and decontaminate, having basic safety measures like a way to wash my hands and eyes, and managing my waste products safely. Because the surfaces have to be easy to decontaminate, the walls in this garage that are made of wood and drywall and the floor that's made of plain concrete aren't going to cut it. If something spills, it could soak into the surface and I wouldn't have a way to clean it up easily. So the first priority for me was to have walls and floors that are non-porous. The floors were kind of the easy part. I got some vinyl garage flooring that is totally not porous at all. And I just kind of rolled those out and I got the right amount. Looks all good. The walls though, that's a different story. I can't just tear down the walls in my garage. My landlord would absolutely kill me. So the obvious solution, obvious, right, was to just build entirely new walls myself to install in the garage. It sounds easy enough, right? Well, wrong. I am not a carpenter, and I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to construction, really. So that was the bulk of my effort on this project, which brings me to the painful parts. First, I had to build the frame for the walls, which involves getting some 2x4s, and I rented a drill to put these frames together. But man, I suck at drilling. So yeah, I dropped a lot of screws. Then I put some plywood sheets on top of these frames because originally I thought I'd be able to just kind of paint the plywood with a super thick, non-porous paint, but that was a mistake. And I realized after I put the plywood on that that's not gonna work. If something spills, it could still get through the paint and soak into the wood, and that's definitely not biosafety level 1. So I ended up having to get some polycarbonate panels and I put those on top of the plywood instead. These were a total pain in the ass to install, and this was by far the most annoying part of this whole process. Each panel had to be glued onto the plywood with this kind of special glue that I had to wear a mask for so I didn't get brain damage. I had to put them all on by hand, and then I have to roll out all the bubbles and make sure that it's all flat and attached to the plywood. It took so long. It took like an hour and a half of just straight out rolling per panel. Got a bunch of blisters on my hands. My back was really killing me. And again, I had to wear this crazy big mask to make sure that I didn't literally kill my brain with the glue. Once I got the panels installed on the frames, it was totally worth it. These things are super easy to clean and decontaminate, and I think they look great on camera. Boom! I just had to make sure that the walls wouldn't kind of collapse down on me and smush me like a bug. Okay, so now I'm trying to attach the two pieces of wall together so they don't come toppling down on me. So I used some strong ties to attach them together to make a right angle that won't fall down. I'm taking these, what are they called? Simpson strong ties, and I'm joining these two pieces together so that they make this L shape. So just gonna snap these in there so it holds the pieces together. I also dropped a ton of screws while I was doing this part too. Again, I am not a carpenter. I've never done anything like this before. I'm kind of just fucking winging it. After the walls were finished, but before they were 100% done, I started looking at equipment to kit out the lab, which brings me to phase 2, the sketchy parts. To really make this a research lab, I need research equipment, and I'm on a tight budget. For the kinds of projects I want to work on, I had a basic list. I need a stainless steel table to do the work on. I picked up a big stainless steel table, perfect for my lab bench purposes. This is the table. The problem with it is that because it was from an ex-dispensary production facility, it is covered in like weed concentrate, oil, and gunk and residue and stuff. So I've got to clean that. It's a pretty sweet table though. And the best part of it all is it was only 50 bucks. Normally a table like this, if you're gonna get it new at this size, I don't know, 300 bucks. I also got some good bottles to mix reagents with and a little sous vide heater from a sketchy Craigslist posting of this weed extraction facility that was shutting down. A little bit sketchy, but it worked out, it's fine. I also needed a rack. I actually found one in the shed in the backyard. There's a bunch of spider webs on it, so I cleaned those off. I sanitized it and I moved it into the lab. That's here behind me. Stainless steel tables right here. Another really important part of a biology lab is something to sanitize and sterilize the things that I'm working with to make sure there's no bacteria or living organisms that I don't want in my experiments. So I had to get a pressure cooker. These things are usually pretty expensive, about $180, but I found one on Facebook Marketplace for 50 bucks. It was a little bit sketch, but it's okay. I had to clean off all this soot that was on the bottom of it, and I think the person who I got it from was using it to grow magic mushrooms, essentially. They were sterilizing the things to grow the magic mushrooms. I also need a scale to measure things out with. I actually have one that I smuggled out of my high school chemistry class. So Miss Dana, if you see this, I'm sorry. I gave eBay a bunch of my business for this lab, and this was where I got most of my stuff. I got a stir plate for a great deal, a set of beakers, a bunch of reagents to make my media with, lighting for the lab, and one of the most important parts, a still air box to do sterile work inside of. A couple other things I unfortunately had to buy from Amazon to keep costs down. This was things like a lab coat, containers to grow my bacteria or maybe my plants or my fungi, basically little polypropylene, easily sterilizable containers that I can put in the pressure cooker, and a safety sink and an eye wash station. I also had some friends at that big science company that I used to work at. They hooked me up with this really expensive incubator that is way out of my budget, and that's a huge find. This brings us to the last phase of safety. I also got some waste containers, one for solid waste and another for liquid waste, which I will sterilize with 10% bleach before discarding. For the solid waste, put it in the pressure cooker, sterilize it, kill anything that's in there, and the stuff I'm working with is pretty harmless, so after that it can kind of be thrown out into the municipal trash. I also had to make sure that if I do spill anything, I can easily clean it up and disinfect my surfaces. So I filled in the cracks between the panels on the walls with this silicone, and I added a silicone and rubber base to the base of the wall so that if anything spilled on the ground, it wouldn't seep underneath and get into the wood of the walls themselves. And that was pretty much it to build the lab. I mean, it was a lot of work, a lot more work than I expected to do the things like putting the walls together and all of that, but honestly, I'm really happy with how it's turned out so far. So you might be wondering, what am I actually planning on doing in this lab? Well, it's a pretty small and limited space, but despite that, I think I can do some really interesting research in here. The first project I'm going to be focusing on is culturing bacteria to produce cellulose. But what does that mean and why does it matter? Well, if you've ever seen a kombucha SCOBY, that kind of white material that forms is actually cellulose produced by the bacteria within the kombucha culture. This is a super interesting material because it's really bio-friendly and biocompatible while also having some really interesting material properties. For example, it can be used to create biodegradable packaging or plastics or even clothing. It can also be used as a bandage or a wound treatment that helps wounds heal faster. It's even being researched as a potential bio-friendly electronic circuit that you can use to create a wearable electronic device of some sort. And the best part, you can grow it off of waste products like lawn clippings or brewery waste without using a ton of expensive or fancy equipment. But one of the problems with this kind of cellulose is that it can be difficult or expensive to produce at large scales. So it's not being adopted as quickly as maybe it could be by large companies because it's not profitable enough. So I want to research the best, most affordable way to produce this kind of cellulose in an at-home garage lab setting. And that way maybe we could decentralize its production and use it for local uses in our communities and show that we don't have to rely on these big corporations in order to create a more sustainable world. In other words, I want to synthesize this kind of cellulose out in the field. Field synthesis, you see kind of the name of the channel thing we got going on here. Some other projects that I'm really interested in pursuing are cloning and culturing plants, partly because I'm kind of interested in selling the clones to help fund the lab, partly because I just think it's really cool and interesting, and partly because my girlfriend loves cool plants and I want to be able to give some to her. I'm also interested in designing proteins. I want to see if I could design one, express it and purify it here in the lab, either with a cell-free technology or using E. coli to produce the protein, and then test it to see if it actually does what I designed it for. This might be a little further down the line because I have to learn the actual process of how to do that first. And really, I'm curious if it's possible to kind of synthesize all of these different fields of research together, that's that field synthesis again, to kind of create a combined solution. Like, imagine a protein or an enzyme that could help deliver a useful nutrient to a plant. Maybe I could attach that enzyme to the cellulose material that also holds water really well so that the protein doesn't wash away, and incorporate that with the environment that the plant is growing in. Then this plant could have better access to nutrients and water and grow better in a harsh environment, for example. That's kind of, I don't know if that would work or not. This is kind of a big pipe dream of an idea, but I can't get there if I don't try, right? So if you're interested in these kinds of science experiments, or just this notion of DIY science, garage lab setting in general, or if you just want to see me fail and fail and fail and maybe succeed as I figure out what the heck it is that I'm doing, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like and share the video, do all of those great things to become a member of this community as we build this together. Thanks for watching my first video, and I hope to see you in the next one.